Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. Scott Carson here on the Note Closer Show. As always, excited to be here with you today. In today's episode, I thought I'd share another reason why you don't want to buy notes in New Jersey again. Now, no offense to my friends up in New Jersey, the Garden State, right? New Jersey has always taken a while to foreclose. Usually 2 years to foreclose as we budget in there. But there's some changes that take place in the past year, completely forgot to talk about. And guess what? There's another division with their hands out, needing to get paid at a foreclosure, which is different than just about every other state out there. And I'll get to that in a second. All right. But there's been some big changes to the foreclosure laws in New Jersey. And they say it's supposed to help with the clarity with the lenders and the borrowers and help people get back on track. I think it's a bunch of political bullshit, personally. And I'll go into this, and I want to thank some folks for bringing my head. Mendy Pollock off of LinkedIn is a guy that I follow. He shared a story, and I love his stories. If you're not following Mendy, he's a big note buyer, and he buys in New Jersey. But he shared the story the other day about getting tagged for another fee, and I found it quite humorous. So let's go through this. This is actually dated for February of last year, and so I'm pulling this off the Cullen and Dinkum Partners website, which talks about foreclosures. Okay, so the article is titled "New Jersey Overhauls Foreclosure Sale Process by Establishing Community Wealth Preservation Program." Yay! We're going to overhaul it by creating these preservation programs, which these preservation programs really don't work, in my opinion. Anyway, the new law, which has made sweeping changes in the foreclosure law in New Jersey, was signed into law January of last year and took effect immediately, establishing the CWPP programs, Community Wealth Preservation Programs, that expands access for certain buyers to purchase residential properties at sheriff's sales. In doing so, it creates certain rights of refusal in connection with sheriff's sales and administered sheriff's fees that are due for conducting such sales. Generally, the new law applies to residential properties. It defines residential properties as real property located in New Jersey, which utilizes as a primary residence of dwelling and does not include any real property or investment, commercial, or business purposes, or anything more than a 4 unit. Okay. It's important to keep in mind that property may be owned in the name of a corporate entity, but still fall within this definition of residential property. Okay. So the big thing, notice of foreclosure sale. There are now new requirements in connection with providing notice of the foreclosure sale, including that the notice be sent to the property address and the primary address of the foreclosed upon defendant. That's not a surprise. The language used on the envelope must plainly state that the envelope is a notice for the sale of a foreclosed upon residential property. The language must comply with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, that seems kind of oxymoronic right there. Hey, we're foreclosing on your ass. The reason you got to put it on the envelope now is because nobody opens up their mail and oh, I can't be bothered to open up the notices from the bank. I didn't know I was getting foreclosed on. Okay. Here's another thing that drives me bonkers. Notice of upset price and occupancy disclosure. The foreclosing plaintiff must provide a good faith estimate of the upset price at least 4 weeks prior to the sheriff's sale. It must be posted on the sheriff's website. Okay, except in certain limited circumstances, on the day of the sale, the upset price cannot be increased by more than 3% from the upset price provided in the notice. So here's what the upset price is going to be. And we can't increase that by 3%. All right, lenders should pay particular attention to this limitation when developing a bidding strategy. So there's no more of basically, I say, putting the upset bid price in there and bidding it up. You got to say it, and it can't go up there from there. So if you're hoping to sell the property, you're basically going to either take it back now. It's not going to be any of these things where, hey, we're going to put an upset, like a starting bid upset, and then increase it like we've done before, which sucks for the lenders, okay? The new law bars lenders from contacting borrowers next of kin or a non-profit community development corporation to determine whether they intend to participate in the sale, and bars lenders from delaying the sale if they are informed of such intent to participate. So basically, that is just a bunch of crap there too. You can't reach out to the bar and say, hey, are you going to bid at the auction? Prior to the sale, the plaintiff is required to disclose whether the property is vacant, tenant occupied or owner occupied, and if plaintiff has access to vacant property, the plaintiff must provide access to the successful bidder. Okay. All right. Now, this is the thing. Now, everybody knows that states have different foreclosure laws, timeframes, what you can put down. This one doesn't surprise me, except here in Texas, where we got to show up with all cash, right? You got to show up with all cash, no rent to the bank, it's under wire. You got to show up with cashier's checks, okay? And this is the thing. So for some bidders, the new law contains exceptions to the typical requirement that the successful bidder pay a 20% deposit at the time of the sale. Certain types of successful bidders are now permitted to pay a significantly lower deposit and have the benefit of much more time to close on the transaction. These include the foreclosed upon defendant, next of kin, tenants, NCDCs, and those other bidders who must occupy the property as a primary residence for at least 84 months. You got to move, if you're going to buy this as a primary residence at the auction, you don't have to put 20% down like normal. You can put 3.5% down, okay? For those types of buyers, the deposit is reduced to 3.5% of the original upset price listed in the notice, okay, for the sale of the property, whichever is less. Moreover, for those buyers, the balance is due within 90 business days as opposed to the typical 30-day deadline set by many sheriff's offices, with no interest accruing against them until 60 business days after the sale. Okay? So, yeah, you're going to sell, somebody's going to buy, put less down, have less skin in the game, and there's no interest for you to give them a 60-day loan, whether you're going to get paid off or not. Okay? Mortgage, this is the thing that is just, another thing, mortgages are permitted to purchase certain foreclosed properties. Notably, the new law includes conditions under which the above-mentioned types of buyers may take out a mortgage to purchase the foreclosed property. Moreover, those buyers who fail to close within 90 business days due to the inability to close a mortgage through no fault of their own, they shall be refunded the deposit and shall be responsible only for the payment of accrued interest. As discussed below, the new law also creates certain rights of first and second refusal, but if those buyers fail to close within 90 business days of the initial share sale, no such rights survive, and any successful bidder at the subsequent share sale shall be subject to the typical 20% deposit and reduced deadline for 30 days with which to close. Hey, we're going to give you 60 days. You only put 3.5% down, and guess what? If you can't close, don't worry. This is horrible for the lender. Okay? Because in 60 days, I could probably have that REO sold if they doesn't sell at the auction. Okay, but now I got to wait around 60, 90 days in a time frame. And look, getting clear title isn't always the easiest thing on foreclosures either. And also, some lenders don't want to allow us to sell stuff within 90 days at increased value. So if my loan balance that I'm foreclosing on is smaller than the actual value of the property, I'm not going to get that upside. I'm only going to get what they bid on. Horrible thing. Okay. The borrower's next of kin and tenant's right of first refusal to purchase. This is kind of crap. If the foreclosed upon defendant is an individual and not a corporate entity, and if that defendant, his or her next of kin, or a tenant has secured financing or assets sufficient to meet terms offered by the foreclosing plaintiff or an alternative financial institution to purchase property, then for the initial sale, that individual now has a right of first refusal to purchase the property for the amount of the original listed upset price or the final starting upset price, whichever is less. That's a bunch of crap. Hey, you're going to bid it for the full value? Nope. Oh, guess what? You're going to bid it for the lesser of the two. No, I don't like that. Additionally, that individual retains the right of first refusal for a rescheduled sale date if the initial sale is delayed or postponed. The right of first refusal is exercised by paying a 3% deposit to the sheriff prior to the opening of the bidding, with a balance due within 90 business days. Generally, the benefits conferred on foreclosed upon defendants and next kin are subject to the foreclosed upon defendant having entered foreclosure proceedings due to specific circumstances outside the control of the foreclosed upon defendant. Ugh. So your tenant now feels like they have a right to be the right of first refusal, and no, they're not going to pay full value. They're going to pay the legal balance minus the 3.5% deposit. I don't like that. Okay. You got to have a mortgage. Here's the mortgage pre-approval is required. As indicated above, the new law expressly allows certain types of buyers to purchase by way of financing that have been pre-approved by certain regulated financial institutions for at least the amount of the original listed upon price or the final starting upset price, whichever is less. However, bidding higher than the pre-approved amount is not permitted. So they get the first right to bid. If it gets bid up beyond that from somebody else, they're not allowed to increase. Okay, if you're a cash buyer, you do that. Okay, that's not bad. Restrictions and penalties applicable to tenants and other bidders. A tenant or bidder who intends to occupy the property for 7 years pays a 3.5% deposit and finances the purchase must have received home buyer education and counseling through a HUD certified housing counseling agency and must provide the sheriff proof of competition or enrollment in that program. Even if they don't go with a HUD loan, they got to go through the HUD training. This is stupid. Okay. Tenants must provide proof that they have resided at the house for at least a year and that they are not in arrears on rent as of the date the foreclosed upon defendant received a notice of foreclosure. So you see this happening where tenants stop paying because the house is going to foreclosure. Okay. Tenants are allowed to purchase under the provision of the new law if the foreclosed upon defendant or next of kin decides not to participate in the sheriff's sale or exercise his rights under the new law. As to property sold to those bidders other than foreclosed upon defendant, next of kin, or nonprofit, you must occupy the property as their primary residence for 84 months. The deed must clearly state the property may not be sold for 84 months from the date of the sheriff's sale, except under certain exceptions. Such a bidder who finances the purchase and does not occupy the property for 84 months shall be subject to a fine of $100,000 for the first violation and $500,000 for each subsequent violation. So if you're, get this, okay. So if you're an investor and you're going to go buy this property at the auction and you're not going to live in it for 7 years, you're going to get tagged because you didn't live in it for 7 years. This new law includes provisions for testing and overseeing compliance with the 84-month occupancy rate requirement. A fraudulent violation of these provisions of the law outlining the exceptions of the 84-month residency requirement shall be an unlawful practice in violation of the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act. This is a bunch of BS. 7 years? What happens to people buy and they move? This is just stupid. Once again, you get stupid politicians or liberals getting here trying to save everybody. All right. Now here, guess what? Under certain circumstances, the foreclosed upon defendant, next of kin, or tenant may request that a NCDC purchase the property for such party. If the NCDC has a written agreement for such a purchase, it must allow that party reside on the property for a period of time that is agreed on. 2, in an affordable lease to be negotiated, which must include an option to purchase property. So they allow them to move in and do a lease option, basically. But it's got to be affordable. Okay, affordable. If the NCDC has such a written agreement to purchase, subject to certain other conditions, the non-thing shall also have the right of second refusal to purchase property, which is more to the above mentioned. Stupid. If the foreclosed upon defendant, next of kin, or tenant decides not to participate in the sheriff's sale, enter an agreement with the NCND, or fails to secure financing or assets sufficient to meet the terms offered by the foreclosing plaintiff, or an alternative financial solution to purchase a property, then the NCDC shall have the right of second refusal to purchase the property and the amount approved for the final starting upset price at the time of sale, and they may also bid at the sheriff's sale. This right of second refusal is exercised by the NCDC registering his participation in the sale and paying a 3.5% deposit to the opening bid, with a balance due in 90 business days. An NCDC that seeks to bid instead of exercising the right of second refusal must also register in participation, and if it is a successful bidder, it must put down 3.5% deposit close of 90. They are making this so freaking complicated in New Jersey, right? Okay. Let's see here. What should I go through here with you? Okay, NCDCs are subject to fines if they do not comply with certain additional restrictions. In an NCDC that is the successful bidder of vacant or abandoned property must restore it as need be and either sell it to a household earning no more than 120% below area median income, or rent it to a household earning no more than 100% below area median income. Okay, that's stupid. They must also ensure that the restrictions remain in place as to future owners in any future sale of the property by way of a renewable deed restriction with a minimum number of affordability years being 30 years and with the option to renew. This is just saying don't buy shit at the auctions, okay, in New Jersey. An NCDC that is a successful bidder of property occupied by a tenant or the foreclosed upon defendant with whom the NCDC does not have an existing agreement to purchase a property must negotiate with such occupant in good faith to enter into affordable lease and can only evict after 120 business days. Such occupant does not respond to requests to negotiate. Even after removal, the NCDC must comply with the above mentioned requirements to restore the property as need be and sell or rent to specific households. Okay, so you haven't paid your mortgage in New Jersey in probably 2 years. You're not going to reach out to us. And guess what? We're going to buy it. But now, since you aren't going to respond, we got to wait another 120 days before we can evict you. And then we can only sell it to people who make less than really the median income. Okay. Oh, now this is where it gets just kind of stupid. For all mortgage foreclosure sales, sheriffs were previously entitled to commissions based on the successful bid price. These commissions were 6% on all sums not exceeding 5,000 and 4% on all sums exceeding that amount. Now, for all mortgage foreclosure sales, including commercial foreclosures, sheriffs are entitled to 6% on the entire successful bid. Additionally, on execution sales other than mortgages for mortgage foreclosures on all sums not exceeding 5,000, sheriffs are entitled to 10%, and for all sums exceeding 5,000, they are entitled to 5%. However, for any sale that reverts to the foreclosing plan, the sheriff is only entitled to $150. Okay, this is the biggest crap right here. Now you got to pay 6%, 5% or 4% to the sheriff's department for them doing their freaking job. Oh, that's just horrible. Oh, yeah, it's making it difficult to foreclose. Guess what? You're not going to pay. You got to take the commission out of the proceeds right now. Oh, stupid. Here's the thing that always cracks me up. Proponents of the Community Wealth Preservation Program claim that it is aimed at preserving and protecting the wealth and assets within a community and address various economic, social, and environmental challenges that might threaten the financial stability and well-being of a particular locality. It remains to be seen whether the program's objectives will be met as the new law is applied. Given the extent of changes instituted by the law, many of its implications remain to be determined. Duh. As such, this article is intended to provide an overview of the new law rather than advice of any specific matter. Okay, here's the big thing, okay? This is just straight up aggravating, okay? There used to be a rule, and it still has, when it was an expedited foreclosure, if it was a vacant property, you could foreclose on the property in 6 months in New Jersey. That was the one kind of caveat that would make it sense to buy if it was vacant property and nobody's fighting you, that you could foreclose on it and go from there. Okay. But now that you got all these stupid laws, all these things, affordability, and all these other things, first tenants or stuff like that, this literally tells me avoid New Jersey in total. I mean, I've always said that anyway, for the most part, unless it was a vacant asset, but now these things just don't make sense. They just don't make sense no matter which way you do it. And so what you're going to have happen is you've had a lot of distressed debt, portfolios of New Jersey stuff that's been bought by these big banks and lenders with the goal to work it out and modify it or try to do some sort of things. It's going to make those things sit around a whole lot longer and have a whole lot less bidders at the auction, because if they're afraid of having to jump through these things and then having to disclose what your final upset bid is going to be. You know what? If I have the right to foreclose, let me bid myself. Don't making me require that the lowest bid that I can only go up by 3.5% is a big. I want to give the big middle finger to the New Jersey foreclosure laws. Okay, no offense to sheriffs. Yeah, I get it. You've been entitled to commission, but haven't taken it. But you're not doing 6% of the work. You're not doing 4%. You're showing up on a day to cry about it, make sure things are filed. You're deserving a $500, $400 filing fee. Okay, $150 filing fee if it reverts back. No offense, that's what you're worth. Now, if you go out and do an eviction, okay, I can see a fee to handle the eviction. But you're sure not worth 4 or 5 or 6% of the original sales price or what the foreclosure amount is. That makes 0 sense, and it's absolute ludicrous that somebody's going to have to pay that. And then I got to pay now a listing commission to the realtor. If it doesn't, well, if it sells at the auction, it's okay, fine. But it's still, that's another 5-6% on my pocket that I couldn't bid up on because now I'm limited by your stupid New Jersey foreclosure laws. So if you haven't figured this out, don't buy notes in New Jersey. Okay, just forget about the Garden State. I'm sorry, New Jerseyans, you're going to have to just rely on the fresh smell of the fresh air in New Jersey. Okay, that stinky smell, that you get when you're around like different refineries. It kind of comes back stinky. That fresh air, not really making a lot of sense. So sorry, guys, just had a rant and rave reading this. I just think it's stupid. Maybe I'm stupid. But I just think it's just another way for the government to have a handout, take more money out of your pocket and give you less opportunities. And oh, let's help everybody on here who can't pay their mortgage. Some people need help, but every lender that I know has offered to help the borrower stay in the house, to do a whole variety of things. But now you got some politician or some stupid idiot. They're thinking, coming up with other ways to drag shit out. Look, if people can't pay, pay, stay. And I guarantee that lenders are offering people opportunities because they don't want to go through 2 years of foreclosure. But if you got to go through 2 years of foreclosure, let us cash this thing out. Let us get our money back and move on to a different day, a different borrower, and move on. Okay? We can't save everybody. If you're trying to save everybody, you're not going to be able to save yourself. So, anyway, once again, number one thing, never buy a note on a property you don't want to end up owning. Well, I don't want to end up owning any property in New Jersey, so I'm not going to buy any notes. So, there you go. Go out, take some action, everybody, and see you at the top. Bye. Hey, real estate investors. So you want to dive into the world of note investing, but don't currently have the funds to sign up for an expensive class or a workshop or one-on-one coaching. Well, then you definitely want to check out the biggest bang for your buck in the note world, and that's our WCN membership. It get you an all-you-can-learn access to our class workshop replays, tapes, weekly coaching calls. For $97 a month, it's the biggest bang of the note industry because you get access weekly with me. You can book one-on-one phone calls with me. As we get different tapes in, we'll share them with our members after our one-on-one coaching students get access to us. We share a variety of tools, like I said, replays to the previous workshop, special discount codes to other events that you can take advantage of to help you get more bang out of your dollar every month. We've been investing in notes for over 20 years, and one of my biggest passions is helping note investors, big and small, get started buying notes. Yes, I got started years ago with no money, no savings, and no list. And I love helping people close on their first deal, get their first private funding partner to help them fund more deals and help them both make above average returns. If you're looking for somebody to help you take your note investing from 0 to 60 and want to get started, my WCN membership is a great place to get started. Like I said, we upload lists to it, video training, coaching calls for $97 a month. What can go wrong? The only thing we ask is you hang around for 6 months, and then if you don't like it, you can cancel. But check it out at noteumbrella.com. That's noteumbrella.com. That's our WCN membership. Get looking at assets today. Start putting your fingers on the trigger to pull the trigger on some note deals here before too long. Yes, anybody can buy notes. I don't care your age, your savings, what race, color, whatever it is. Note investing is all about what action you take, and the first action you should take is signing up for our monthly membership at $97 a month. That's noteumbrella.com. You can also access it by going to weekclosenotes.com and checking on the monthly membership. But we are here to help you. Scott Carson, the Note Guy. We look forward to seeing you at the top.